Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm so happy you're here. I was just doing a bit of dancing before getting started. Kendra's here with a colorful and fermented lunch. So if you want to drop in the chat where you're from and your name, and then how old your children are, or if you're not a mom yet, you can just leave that part out. And I love to see your faces. So especially if you want to come on the camera in the beginning of the class so I can see you. And that will help me to connect in with all of you. And then as you continue to watch the class, we'll do a little bit of a kitchen demo. You can turn your camera off if you want to. But I love to say hello to your faces because, hi Simona, because you know, these online classes are so cool, and it's amazing that I get to reach so many people through Instagram and the internet and everything. But it's also, for me, this teaching is about a felt sense and about connecting together. And so I love to see your faces. And as we continue to work together, if we do, we will, you know, be side by side in our kitchens. And it's a really beautiful experience, actually. I think it's a little bit different than a lot of the online classes these days because it's interactive together. So I'm Kate, and I teach online cooking classes. And I've been doing this for about 5 years. And I'm a GAPS practitioner and a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. So I'm gonna say hi to all of you. Let's see. Hi from Colombia, Skylar, Oklahoma with a 4-month-old baby, Zoe from London, UK, 22-month-old and 11-year-old, Sherry in San Diego, baby is 7.5 months old, Santa Cruz, 40 weeks pregnant with my first. Woo! Maggie, Western Massachusetts, Britt from Texas, 11, 7, and 14 months, Lily from the UK, 6 and 3, Sina maybe, I think, from Utah, no babies yet, Julia from Vermont, my baby's 6.5 months old, Christina and Rocco, 8.5 months, from North Carolina, Elena from Erie, Pennsylvania, Jessica with an 18-month-old, from Wisconsin, 9-month-old, Anya probably. Ashley from Cleveland, Tennessee, Jack 13 months, Ruth 3 years old, Wisconsin 17-month-old, Hetty UK 6.5 months old, Fort Worth, Texas 4 months old, 9-year-old, 6-year-old, Amber from Maryland 6-year-old, 1 on the way, Susanna from Vermont using my husband's account, our daughter's 5 months, Alina from Munich, Germany, Atlanta, Georgia, Genevieve, Muskogee Ancestral Lands. Genevieve is 6 years old and the second baby coming at the end of June. That's Simona. Kendra, mother of a 4.5-year-old and 8-week fetus, pregnant. Amazing, beautiful. Hello from Kenya. Oh. Kids are 1, 4, and 7. Hi, it's Ellie from Spain. Eli, maybe. Father of a 1-year-old, daughter Rachel. Nina from Colorado, 5.5 months postpartum. Mathia from Colorado, 6.5-month-old. So a lot of us have babies on this call. Amazing. This broke the record for me. Over 600 people signed up for this call. So I know more of you are watching the recording, more of you are putting your names in the chat, and 44 people live. That's pretty awesome. So happy you're here. So today we're going to be talking about the foundational foods for gut healing. We're going to be talking about how to introduce solid foods for babies. We're going to talk about eczema, and we're going to talk about chronic infections. And in order to do that, we have to understand a little bit of our physiology. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what leaky gut is and why so many people have it. And I'm going to show you some of my foundational foods. This is my kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen. This is where I teach from. I used to sit in front of a computer and share slides when I would teach the mostly nutrition content, but I actually love being in my kitchen. It's very grounding. It's very fun for you all to see and sense the foods through the lens. And This class, this free class, is a kickoff for a course that I teach. So in all my classes, I always give lots of information. I want you to leave feeling confident and at least with some new nuggets of information that you can integrate into your life. And it's a celebration for the start of my course, which is called Mama Baby Biome. And the first round I ever did of this course was starting in March of this year. And it was incredible. So in this course, we have live cook-alongs and we have pre-recorded nutrition content that you can self-pace through the whole time of the course and beyond. So in these live cook-alongs, we batch cook together. So there's recipes, there's instructions, there are shopping lists sent out ahead of time, and then we all gather with our ingredients in the kitchen and cook together. It's really, really fun. And we're going to start those cook-alongs on June 4th of this year. So because you're here now, you have a special coupon code, which will be sent to you in the chat. My husband's also here. He runs my tech. He's a butcher and he's also a nutritional therapist. And before he became a nutritional therapist, he worked with children with autism for a decade. So we have a pretty stacked, interesting resume in terms of dealing with food and using food as medicine. For me, my background is in dance. Alex and I actually met at the School of Theater and Dance, and I became a nutritional therapist while working as a private chef for one family. I did that for 5 years in Seattle, Washington, and on the Big Island of Hawaii. So working as a private chef, I learned and cooked a lot of food for this family, but I also really wanted to go deeper in the healing work. I didn't want to just be cooking for someone for the rest forever. And so I became a nutritionist. I founded Regenerative Cooking School, and then I went and got another certification, which is GAPS. And GAPS is a very high level program that explains the connection between our gut and our brain. And so this is what we're going to be talking about today. Not only the connection between our gut and our brain, but the physiology and the components of our gut and how that impacts our health all around. It's why you're all here. You want to learn more. I got a lot of your questions ahead of time. We will have a time for Q&A. So I'm going to teach for about an hour, and then we're going to open it up for questions, talk more about the upcoming course, your special deal that you're getting today. And I think it's going to be a great time. So we have a few more people. Jasmine from San Antonio with a 5-month-old daughter. Canada. Hello from Canada. Courtney, mother of 12, 10, 6, 3, and 5-month-old. Amazing. Hi from South Africa, 6-month, 3, 6, and 8. Emma from Wales with the 1-year-old. Beautiful. Thank you all so much for being here. This is a huge passion of mine because my baby, I've always wanted to help mothers, and having my baby made it all make so much more sense. So without further ado, let's get started. Behind me, I have some healing foods that are really, really important to me. So this is a huge bag of frozen liver. This is lamb liver that Alex, he harvested this lamb, and we rely on lamb liver very much in our house. If you don't have a lamb liver, you can use beef liver, pork liver, duck liver. Any ruminant animal or fowl is a great, or even fish, is a great food for you to consume. Now, how do we consume this nutritious food? What's the best way? Personally, this is a question I get all the time. Is it okay to supplement with liver over eating it? And I really love to eat liver, but I didn't always. I think that it's a good food to train yourself to eat. And the reason why is because it's full of nutrients. Some people, they come to liver and they're like, no problem. I love liver. I've eaten it since I was little. It's delicious. That's my husband. For me, I was like, what? I can't eat that. It was like actually causing a gag reflex in my body. And what I know about this is actually when the body rejects a food like this, it's often meaning that we need that food even more. So having that sort of nausea reaction is a sign that my liver needs healing. And so I tell that little story because as you go along on your healing journey, you're going to come up against things that you don't necessarily like. that aren't necessarily comfortable. And I think that as modern humans, we need to get a little bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable. We have worlds and lives that is pretty much centered around how can we make ourselves more comfortable. And sometimes when we're healing, there's a lot of bits that aren't as comfortable. And let's just take our new babies, for example. Like, babies are so amazing because when you offer them a new food, they are going to have a wide range of reactions, right? Like, sometimes they're eating it right away, the same food 5 minutes later, they're spitting out. And so there's just like a consistency that comes with the healing protocol and helping our bodies get to where we need to go. So I'm happy to say that on the other side of this, after having nausea every day in my first trimester, eating a little bit of liver pate daily and increasing the amount, it cured my nausea, and I am officially a liver lover. So for you, you can learn to love liver too. And the reason why we want to have liver in our diets is because it's the most nutrient dense food per gram on the planet. It is full of fat soluble vitamins. It is full of minerals. It is full of cofactors that help us to assimilate those nutrients. So when we're eating healing foods, it's all about the food itself and how it's prepared. So when it comes to liver supplements, they are good. And I have some and I keep them and I use them in a pinch. But really, to get your body to that next place, you want to start with liver, cooking it, right? You want to cook it. You want to touch it. You want to use fat. You want to use fat because fat helps you assimilate all of these nutrients, right? So that's just our little intro about liver. We're all here because we want to recover and we want transformation, and we want to learn how to help our babies, how to support our babies' gut health when we take them from breast milk to solid foods, or possibly you had trouble with breastfeeding, your baby's on formula, and now what do you do? So I have a class called Solid Foundations, which is included in my course coming up for free. And today I'm going to teach you the foundational pieces of baby solid food introduction via the GAPS way. Okay, so GAPS is an acronym. It stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome, or Gut and Physiology Syndrome. And it was created by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. And she was working as a neurosurgeon at the time in Russia. Her son got an autism diagnosis, and no one in her field could help her. So she went back to school and she got a master's in nutrition. She stopped being a neurosurgeon and she created the GAPS nutritional protocol. It's a step-by-step procedure for healing leaky gut, for reversing things like autism, ADD, all these mental health symptoms. But what she noticed by all these clients coming into her office and presenting with mental health symptoms, there's always a physiologic component to this, right? Like, we can observe in our children or in ourselves, we don't just have anxiety. We have anxiety and diarrhea. We have anxiety and constipation. We have anxiety and itchy skin. So why is that happening? It's happening because of what is inside of our bodies and all around us, which is a microbiome. So this microbiome is passed down from generation to generation. More about that in a minute. And when the microbiome is damaged, the probiotic strains that are meant to keep us well no longer have the strength or the hold in the system to do so. So pathogenic strains overgrow, and usually this is for a reason, because they are cleansers. They clean up our environment. But the problem is, those are living organisms. So those living organisms, they poop, they off-gas, they reproduce, they crawl all around the body. They live in different places like humans. Some like an ocean view, some like a mountain view, some like the desert view, right? So these pathogenic microbes actually leave our gut and travel all around the body, and they create symptoms. But what we have to understand is those symptoms are there for a reason. Those pathogenic bugs are there to actually help us to clean up a system to prevent us from some deeper damage. And when we balance the microbiome with beneficial strains of bacteria, then we support our whole ecosystem and the symptoms reduce. Okay, that's a lot of information. Any questions so far?
You have one.
How often should we be eating liver? Yes. So I like to recommend, as a starting point, you eat the size of liver, a palm the same size as your palm for a serving size. Either eat liver once per week as a full meal or daily with a small amount, like with your eggs in the morning, right? So either once per meal, once a week as a dinner or a lunch, full meal of liver, or every single day, a little bit every day. And if you're trying to conceive, the more liver you eat, the better. If you're an exhausted breastfeeding mom, the more liver you eat, the better. If you're introducing solid foods to your baby, you will let them, they will show you how much liver they want to eat. It's usually about 3 times a week that Augies into eating liver, sometimes more, sometimes less. Can we eat liver and supplement with cod liver on the same day? Yes, you can. I typically don't though, unless I'm pregnant or preparing for pregnancy. So the upper limit of cod liver oil, I believe, is 1 teaspoon per day for adults. I have it written down. It might be, I think it's 2. So I just typically, if I'm eating liver every day, I don't feel like I want cod liver oil. But again, this is like getting to know your body. So, and also like trusting your impulses and what you need. Do I suggest raw versus cooked liver? I like liver cooked medium rare with butter. When I eat raw liver, I always want to consume it with fat. So usually like a kefir or a kefir cream or a full fat yogurt, something like that. Can women with mercury fillings take cod liver oil? I'm going to circle back to that one. So, okay, microbiome. So we're there with our microbiome. I love that you all are interested in liver, and we hear a lot about liver on the internet, and it is a good food. And we see ancestrally that our families ate this. But let's take a step back. We're going to talk about the formation of the microbiome in children. So in order to do this, I want you to picture your great grandmother, and I want you to picture her hands, and I want you to imagine the work that she did every day and the foods that she ate and the environment that she interacted with. And she gets pregnant and she has a baby, and that's your grandmother. And now we're going to imagine your grandmother's hands. What does your grandmother touch daily? What does your grandmother eat? All of this is informing her microbiome. She's living her life. She's maybe touching the garden. She's maybe eating more locally. And your grandmother has your mother. And your mother is living in a pretty different environment than our great grandmother. She is moved to more urban environments, right? She is probably eating processed foods. She might have gone on the pill. And in fact, your grandmother might have gone on the birth control pill. Your grandmother might have started taking Tylenol, but your great grandmother probably didn't, right? So we're seeing over time and throughout generations how our world changes around us and thus impacts our inner ecosystem. By impacting our inner ecosystem through our environment, the microbiome degrades. So this is what I was talking about. Those probiotic strains that are meant to rule the gut and give us health are degraded over time through our environment. So here's your mother. Maybe your mother or your grandmother was drinking a lot of Diet Coke, having a lot of sugar. And at this time, in the 90s, when I was born, so your mother becomes pregnant, now all of a sudden we have glyphosate everywhere in the waterways. A water-soluble toxin is used widely in the world, in the United States. You can look at maps and see the correlation between the places where glyphosate is most heavily used, cancer rates, infertility rates, sperm rates going down. Like they have that data and that mapped out. So what does an antifungal do to our microbiome? It degrades it a little bit further. And now, by the time you are having your baby, you've passed on your microbiome in a degraded state, in a compromised state. So I got a great question before this. Is it my fault that my baby has symptoms? It's not your fault, but it is definitely related to you because we are connected through our microbial environment. We have a microbiome in our home. This is the terrain, right, that we're exploring together. It's the terrain of the kitchen. It's the terrain of our bodies. It's the terrain of our environment around us. And that impacts us. There's no way that we could have such a polluted earth and not see that our human body is also very polluted. And you might know that because you came here being like, yeah, I got the issues and I'm trying to figure it out, right? And so I have discovered and learned through my body and through my clients' bodies that with slow and steady, consistent implementation of the foods that heal, we can reverse these symptoms, we can rebuild the microbiome, and we can heal. So I believe that anything can be healed. I'm in that camp. I believe that anything can be healed. Any symptom can be reversed. And by healing, I mean more ability for life force and vitality to come through you and live in you every single day. All right. So we have a picture of our microbiome, and I want to talk a little bit. I'm like, this is a really cool nerdy facts that I love. Since creating the Mama Baby Biome course, I got to dive into research about how the microbiome is formed, what happens with the baby and the mother, and of course, how to support the baby's development of their microbiome once they're born. So what I found that is so interesting is that the placental microbiome mimics our oral microbiome. So there's a lot of information out there. It's more mainstream to understand that when the baby goes through the birth canal, takes their first gulp of air, they are coated with our microbiome. They are ingesting microbes, and that's seeding their microbiome. But what's less talked about is what's happening in utero. And that's because for a long time, people thought that the babies were sterile in there, basically, that there was no bacteria passed. But they're starting to understand, actually, there might be something that's passing. And to me, this makes a lot of sense because the placenta is the main line of nutrients for the baby in the womb, right? And every single organ in our body is coated with a microbiome. So the microbiome of the placenta to pass nutrients would likely, based on what we know about the body and the physiology, would likely also be passing microbes. And what we know is that the placental microbiome is the mimicking of the oral microbiome. So the vaginal and the bowel microbiome is different than the placental and the oral microbiome. Okay. And so that could be part of the reason why dental health is so promoted during pregnancy. Take care of your teeth, gum disease, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet we're using a system of dentistry that's adding toxins to our environment. We're using antimicrobials and antifungals in our mouth that are wiping out beneficial and pathogenic bacteria, right? It's damaging the taste buds. So we really need to support our oral microbiome in a way that is probiotic generating. So some things that I would recommend is oil pulling. Okay, can pull toxins out of the mouth, is safe during pregnancy, is safe during postpartum. And there's studies that show within 7 days of doing oil pulling, there is less gingivitis causing bacteria, even just in a 7-day marker. So oil pulling is excellent. Flossing, water flossing, both great. Brushing with a non-toxic herbal toothpaste, no fluoride in our water, no fluoride in our dental care, right? Getting teeth cleanings from a dentist who is a biological dentist who's aware of how the health of the mouth affects the entire body. Swishing with probiotics. So you can actually use probiotic supplements in the morning and in the evening to just swish around your mouth. You can put them in your throat, open up the capsule and put it in your throat to support the health of your microbiome. So even if you're not pregnant right now, supporting your oral microbiome is going to support your entire body's health. So those are some of my oral microbiome tips. And I just love, I'm just like, oh, this is so cool and exciting, that idea about the oral microbiome mimicking the placental microbiome, which is the shuttle organ for nutrients to your baby. This is incredible. Now, when the baby's born, it goes through the birth canal and that gets a whole different set of microbes, which are considered lactobacillus and bifidostrains mostly. And the bowel flora, so your large intestine where the poop comes out, is informing your vaginal flora. You also share your flora with your partner. So you exchange flora through sexual contact, which is why it's really important for your partner to also be on board with the probiotic foods. You can even use things like kefir as lubricants. You can apply probiotic foods on your skin topically to support the skin microbiome. And this applies in places like your vaginal canal and even your, your vaginal canal mostly. So although if I were treating hemorrhoids or if I had itchy anus, sometimes something like that, you can also apply something topically. So a little bit of an aside, but basically you're sharing your microbiome with your partner. Your baby comes through the birth canal and they absorb your vaginal microbiome and essentially your gut microbiome because you are passing that to them. And now we understand that the baby is actually getting an even more diverse microbiome while in utero. So coming out, that baby has a picture of a microbiome that's very similar to yours and your partner's. Okay, so that gives us a lot of information, because if we have these issues or we have a degraded microbiome, we're passing that to the baby. And the microbiome is one of the biggest epigenetic influencers. So epigenetic is a field of study that basically tells us, okay, our genes are not our destiny and the environment allows us to express those genes. So you might have been, have breast cancer in your family, but you have healed your body and taken care and it's not expressing in you, right? Or another symptom that you don't want to pass to your child. So you are working on your environment actively with your kid right now. And that's improving both of your microbiomes. And that's supporting not only your health, your baby's health, but future generations' health, because you can remember from that grandmother experience that we're passing the microbiome as we go along. Okay, I'm going to just check in with the questions. Does the baby still get the vaginal microbiome if the baby is born in a caul sac intact? That's a very good question. Yes, I would say. I don't exactly know the answer to that. I'd have to look for some research. It's really interesting. It's hard to find all of this stuff. There's good information about the microbiome, like it's becoming a really hot research topic. So there's more and more, but these smaller one-off situations, less. So what I would say, what my intuition tells me is that yes, because that sac is also full of microbes. And so there's like an interaction. I mean, we really can't know. The miracle of physiologic design or physiologic birth is absolutely incredible. And so there's so much more going on than I can really explain to you in this like little lecture that I'm giving, right? Because I'm passionate about it. But I would say that, yeah, there's definitely some passage, maybe not as much, but it would be interesting to have like a historical or a ancestral wisdom on this, because I feel like there could be some really good knowledge there. And if anyone else knows in the chat. Yeah, okay. So let's talk about some of the roles of the gut flora. I did see that last question and I'll address C-section in a moment. So gut flora, they are cleansers, they are administrators, they are protectors, and they are processors. So let's for a second picture our intestines. In the inside, it's like a lot of folds. There's mucus and there's trillions of microbes that live in there. And the mucus is like their home. And we need this mucus layer because it helps us secrete juices. So that's one of the ways that the microbes are processors. They help us digest and assimilate our food. So if we have a damaged microbiome and we're eating a perfect diet, that's going to eventually help our microbiome evolve, but without the state of the gut being robust and vital, we're not assimilating nutrients. They also clean up the environment. So any toxins that come from the inside or the outside, gut flora helps to clean it up. They're administrators, so they boss other microbes around. Ideally, the probiotic microbes will tell the other microbes what to do, keep them in check. Things like Candida, when in a balanced microbiome, are no problem, right? But when they're out of balance, when the Candida overgrows, then we start to see a ton of symptoms. And so what's the solution to that? We simply bring the microbiome back into balance with healing foods, which we're going to get to. Protectors kind of explain that. Same with the cleansers. They're protecting us from, outside invaders or cleaning up our environment from a toxic load. And of course, the gut flora itself can produce toxic metabolites. Okay. So we need our microbiome to be healthy, to be robust. And what is the best thing that we can do for our microbiome? We can consume fermented foods. So here I have two of my favorite fermented foods, which I love to teach people how to make. This one is beet kvass. And beet kvass is simply made, this is a wild fermentation. It's made with sea salt, water, filtered water, and beets. I let it sit on my counter and it becomes an amazing, nourishing tonic, good for my blood, good for my heart, great for my microbiome, good for my liver, gallbladder, digestion. So this is a powerhouse tonic. It is incredible and I recommend drinking it daily. And here I have my sauerkraut, which is my second trusty fermented food. And this is a brine as well. So I made it by using less sauerkraut, sea salt, filtered water, and it's full of vitamin C. It's a great digestive tonic, and it's very helpful for supporting the overall ecosystem. When we start with fermented foods, we want to start slowly because, as I've described, there is an environment here, and we're trying to shift the environment. And by adding in probiotic strains, we are going to do that. But what's going to happen is that those pathogenic or opportunistic flora who's been there the whole time, cleaning the mess of our environment, they're going to start to die. And that can cause symptoms. So that's what we call a die-off reaction. And those die-off reactions, they can be painful. So we always go slow and steady. And I recommend starting with the liquids. So I'm going to have a little bit of mine right here. This is a filtered one. And I'll describe to you the taste. So it's very earthy. This is a one that I've cleared from the first round of the beets, and I keep it in my fridge so that we can drink it. It's a very gorgeous color. It comes out like a dark magenta. So you see here, it's thick and viscous. So some people will say, like, once your beet kvass has become viscous, it's gone too long. I personally don't agree with that. I think it tastes delicious when it's a little viscous. So that's just more of the sugar starting to break down. So a lot of times on gaps, we're actually proliferating the fermentation for longer than a store-bought ferment or a conventional yogurt because we're reducing the sugars in the food. Cheers. Ooh, so it's salty. It's very salty, very earthy, very delightful. Kind of when I gave it to my babysitter, she was like, oh, it just tastes like pickle juice, So it's pickle juice, but with a little bit of beets flavoring. And this is an extremely healing food. Like some people will have this and say, oh, I had to run to the bathroom immediately. Like I had diarrhea right away. And it's like, what do you do with that? What do you make of that? Well, that's just your body. So when we have diarrhea, it's the fastest way for the body to move stuff out that doesn't need to be there. So it caused a die-off and phew, out you go. So I told this person, slow down, have a little bit less, keep it at a dose that you're comfortable with and build your way up. Yes, beet kvass, my partner will put that in the chat.
What do I put in the chat?
How to spell beet kvass.
Did you also see these other questions?
I did. Yeah. Okay. So fermented food number 1. Foundational healing food for your gut. With children, beet kvass is pretty strong. I haven't even actually done much beet kvass with my son because he's doing just great with fermented radishes, fermented sauerkraut, and the juice. So why do we start with the juice first? We start with the brines for babies and for adults because we don't want to, it's easier to digest essentially. We don't have any fibers. So the fibers of the fermented foods are more advanced food and they're more difficult to digest. So we make sure that we have a robust and healthy microbiome before we start doing the foods. And you can gauge that for yourself. I can guide you along to know when it's time to add in the fermented foods themselves. But typically it comes after a couple weeks or months of just doing the brine. I do teach beet kvass. I love to teach beet kvass, and we will absolutely be doing beet kvass in Mama Baby Biome. So sauerkraut juice, also delicious. Let's talk a little bit about the building foods. So right here, I have bone marrow. Bone marrow is in my top 5 healing foods. So I'll go ahead and tell you my top 5 healing foods. Meat stock, meat close to the bone, animal fats, bone marrow, egg yolk, I guess there's 6, liver, okay? Fermented dairy, if I went a 7th, okay? But these are my top 5 healing building foods, okay? So what do I mean by that? I mean that the body needs nutrients, literal building blocks, in order to repair and heal. We hear a lot about detoxification, but your body is not going to let go of any of the toxic load that we've accumulated in our modern world without nutrients. Okay, so these nutrients are going to help your body build. They're going to provide the literal like Lego blocks for your cells, for your organs, your tissues, and your bones to regrow, because the body regenerates. So this is why I founded Regenerative Cooking School, and also why I'm such a proponent of regenerative agriculture and ecosystem systems healing. We're looking at a large picture, and we have a lot of issues that have all stacked up on each other. And so where the heck do we begin? We begin with the most basic building blocks for our bodies to heal, and that is animal foods. Animal foods are the most similar proteins to our body's proteins. They are the most similar to our tissues, to our organs. So it's very easy for our body to digest and assimilate. Bone marrow roasted, mixed with butter and salt, delicious. Add it to everything. This is a game changer. And we go over how to cook this, how to prepare it in Mama Baby Biome. But I love bone marrow. So that would be a top healing food. We talked about liver. Now we're going to talk about meat stock. So meat stock is not bone broth. And I have a pot of meat stock right here that I prepared yesterday on a cook along as a guest teacher in Kimberly Ann Johnson's work. So meat stock is slightly different than bone broth. Actually, it's completely different. It's a different type of food. The main thing is that these foods actually look the same, but they really are quite different. So here's my golden elixir. This is my delicious, amazing food that helps the body heal. And the principles of meat stock are: always use a raw meat with a joint in it. So that's an example. An example of that would be a neck, shank, feet, wings, legs, trotters, heads, ears. I think I've pretty much covered them, backs. Okay, so those foods are full of collagen. Collagen is the most ubiquitous protein in our bodies. So we need to consume collagen in the most bioavailable form in order for our bodies to repair and heal. So when we have a damaged microbiome, boop, that causes holes in our leaky gut. And now food, toxins, whatever, is able to pass in and out of the membrane. Okay, so that creates more problems. So in order to close those walls, we need collagen. We need collagen. We need to melt it down into gelatin so it can be the glue that repairs our gut, that helps our joints. So if you're someone who has a collagen disorder diagnosis, if you have any sort of joint pain or stiffness, if you have brain fog, if you have digestive issues, meat stock is where you begin. Meat stock is where I tell everyone to begin. And it's not bone broth because we cook it for a short time. We always prepare it from raw meat and bones with a joint in it. It includes the skin. It includes the fat. It includes the protein of the meat and the flesh itself. We melt it into a delicious healing stew and we drink it all day long. And then we eat all the bits. Okay, so here's a chicken foot. This is like, if you have anyone with the age of 3 till 10, like this is the perfect fun science experiment. So chicken feet, I've always cooked with chicken feet, love chicken feet. But until my son came around, I never used to actually eat the paw, the gelatin, the skin. And it's actually amazing. It's this collagen hit that I can't really get from anything else. So I am like, my freezer stacked with chicken feet, my freezer stacked with chicken necks, chicken carcasses, chicken skin, anything that's thrown away because people want boneless, skinless chicken breast, I want it, right? You can also use the whole bird to make meat stock. It's just fantastic. It's full of minerals. It's full of hyaluronic acid, which is what's sold in a lot of beauty products for tightening our skin and making our eyes and skin and face look alive. Of course, when we're healing postpartum, this is going to support prolapse. This is going to lift. This is going to tone collagen, okay? Collagen, most ubiquitous protein in the body, also a magnet for toxicity. Toxins stick in human bodies to collagen. So what do we need to heal? We need meat stock to rebuild every day, meat stock. So our healing foundational foods so far: fermented brines, meat stock, bone marrow, liver. In this, we also are having animal fats. We're having plenty of minerals and electrolytes because we're using whole unrefined sea salt to make it. We're putting herbs in here. We're putting local seasonal vegetables if you can tolerate vegetables at the moment. And we're consuming this. We're making it into soups. We're making it into gravy. We're having cups of it. We are, what else are we doing it? With the babies, we can put it cold in the fridge and serve it as a jelly. We're mixing it with egg yolks. This is just like so amazing. And then as you get brave, you'll be munching on this chicken feet, amazed at how good you feel. It's incredible. Okay, like seriously. And this bone here is great for Augie. So my son's now 13 months old, and I will just pick off the bones that he could choke on and give him this bone right here. So you can see here, this is a great teething toy. It's very rounded edges. There is a lot of collagen here. So this would be after I've started food introduction. And there's not really any parts that he can choke on. Okay. So choking is a big thing. We never want our babies to choke. We always want our babies to be safe, and you watch them when they eat these foods. So like here, right here, I'm playing with it before I give it to him, and I'm noticing this little piece just fell off of my hand really easily. It's a little bit hardened bone with collagen, so I wouldn't give that piece. You know, you want to examine them before you hand it over. But all in all, like this is going to be awesome for him. Feels so good, tastes so good. Building properties for his gut. And we're going to get to the baby portion in just a moment. Okay. So healing power of meat stock. Heck yeah. Is powdered collagen less bioavailable? Yes. Powdered collagen is like a treat that I would use to like make marshmallows or something. It's not something that I would rely on daily for building my gut. I would use meat stock for that because more affordable, less processed. Like when it comes to collagen, first of all, that's like a huge vat of collagen that they're making. They're boiling it down, cooking it down, cooking it down. Then they're dehydrating it, blending it. It's sitting on a shelf, and they're selling it to you as gut healing, which not as much as if you're cooking your meat stock yourself at home. However, if you want to make like marshmallows that are not toxic, you know, as a treat, or like make something with the collagen as a treat every once in a while when you feel really good in your body, I'm all for it. Okay. Should I be careful about giving my 8-month-old baby too much salt? No. So this is really interesting. So I have, when I introduced solid foods to Augie, which the solid food portion is going to be the next part of the class, I kept salt out for 6 weeks after the initial introduction. Just generally like the electrolytes that they're getting from whole unrefined sea salt, they're also getting from the mother's diet, from breast milk, like I was still nursing. So what I learned was that it's just not really necessary for them in the very early days. So this was around 5.5 months that I started with solid foods. But then I wanted to like understand this a little bit better. So I checked out, Lily Nichols has like a very thorough evidence-based article on salt for babies, and really there's no evidence actually that points to why or why not babies shouldn't have salt, or it points to why they can actually have salt. Sea salt I'm talking about. So let's just be clear, I'm not talking about iodized table salt, which is just NaCl sodium. I'm talking about whole unrefined sea salt. For example, this one is an Italian sea salt. We have another one here that's a Celtic sea salt. Okay, so whole unrefined sea salt, which is like the mineral form, which is basically like swimming in the ocean, you know? So we have an ocean outside of our cells, and we need minerals to support that ecosystem. Okay. What I would say is that like I did I just used regular salt for once we got past that initial 6 weeks with no salt, I added in sea salt as I was just giving him our foods. And some days he like really wants a lot of salt. And so I just trust that because he's drinking plenty of fluids, he's got water, and his body does know to an extent, as long as it's a proper form of salt, and he'll spit it out, right? Like he'll say like, no, I don't want salt right now. Or he'll be like, okay. I love munching on chicken feet. Yeah, Simona. What's the difference between sea salt and pink Himalayan salt? Well, pink Himalayan salt is technically also was from the sea as well, but now it's dried salt beds in Utah. And I think that pink Himalayan salt, or not just in Utah, it's in other parts of the world like Pakistan. I was just thinking of Redmond real salt actually. So I think it's a good salt. I personally feel more healing and better from a Celtic sea salt, but I'll use Himalayan as well. I just like rotate through all different kinds of whole mineral salts because they're really good for you. And different salts from different regions have different mineral contents, different trace mineral contents. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically, just to close the loop with the Lily Nichols. Lily Nichols is an American dietitian who wrote a book called Real Food for Pregnancy, which is excellent. And she also wrote Real Food for Gestational Diabetes. She's a dietitian. She's kind of a renegade dietitian, and she has she's like all about evidence-based research. So if you want good research, that's a great resource for you. And in that article, she essentially found that there was no really correlation to this like strict rules around not giving babies salt. And again, we're talking about what kind of salt we're giving to babies. So it's sea salt, whole mineral sea salt, and they can kind of self-select how much they need. And initially, they don't need any salt added to their meat stock because they're still getting electrolytes from breastfeeding. But if you're transitioning from formula, I would recommend adding a little bit of sea salt, and that will be totally safe. Okay. What were the 5 healing building foods again? So meat stock and meat close to the bone, animal fats, liver and organ meats, egg yolk, and bone marrow. I also included like fermented dairy and then the fermented brines. Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. So far, we've covered a lot of information. Are you all doing all right? Doing all right? Taking it in? Okay, cool. I can see you. So food introduction for babies. We're just going to cover some principles, and then we're going to move on to talk about skin issues and chronic infections. Okay. So I used a method of introducing food to my baby, which was created by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. However, I slowed this way down because my baby could not go as fast as the protocol recommended. And the reason why we do step-by-step introduction of baby foods is because babies' guts are actually by nature's design born leaky. And so any foods that we introduce to a baby's diet, we want to make sure that it mimics the nature of breast milk. And meat stock is an excellent place to start. This is where I recommend everyone start. It's a liquid food and it's really delicious, easy to digest, low inflammatory, very supportive for the baby's growth and development. And from there, you slowly introduce more and more foods that are more difficult to digest. So we have meat stock as the first food. And I'm not going to go through the entire protocol today because that's actually like a 2-hour class in itself. What I'm going to teach you is just principles, and hopefully you'll learn more with me about how to do this step by step at whatever time it's good for you. So we start with meat stock. Then after meat stock for a few days, we add in some fresh pressed juice. Now, making fresh pressed juice for a baby, that's a little bit challenging because you just need like a teensy tiny amount. And like, why would you get out your whole juicer and everything like that? So what I did, and I also weaned I weaned Augie during the winter, so we didn't rely too much on fresh pressed juice just because like seasonally it didn't make as much sense. But the reason why we do use fresh pressed juice is because of all the phytonutrients and all of this beautiful plant cleansing food that can be really good for the baby and the baby's gut. So a little bit of carrot juice or cucumber juice just mixed with some water. Okay, and that's in the same time frame that you're introducing meat stock. So you stick with the foods, the same foods for a period of time because you want to notice if the baby's reacting. You want to see if there's some stuff coming up, if there's rashes coming up, if there's fussiness, if there is, this is a beautiful opportunity to tune in with your baby and with your own healing. And this is why like it's kind of perfect timing because you're postpartum and you are healing yourself. So you can use these same foods to rebuild in your body that you use for introducing to your baby. And you can tune in a way and watch how they heal and change or what doesn't work and use that as a way to relate to yourself. So a lot of what I teach is I help mothers and other partners feel confident in their ability to feel into their own impulses and their own instincts for what the kid needs, because that's really the most important thing. Like that's the most beautiful relationship that you can have. I like to arm parents with all the information on nutrition and healing the body, and then I trust you and you trust you to do your own pace with your baby. So for example, the next thing that we add in, so we have meats, we're doing plenty of fats, and we're doing fresh pressed juice. We're doing the juice away from the meats and the meat stock. And every time when you're first introducing the meat stock, you do this a little bit of meat stock and then nurse. So it's pretty much, not the night feedings, but you want to have a cup of meat stock around so that you give your baby some meat stock and then you nurse. That's the reward. My baby really loved meat stock. And so like, I didn't always have to nurse right after. And sometimes it was like, oh, he just wants like more and more spoonfuls of meat stock. So I just gave him that. And then like, even now still we're like nursing a lot after meals, it's kind of like dessert, I guess. But yeah, so you can use the breast as reward for introducing this new food, which is very different. It's not sweet like breast milk. And babies sometimes are like, I'm not sure about this, right? But a lot of times they really like it. That's been the overarching experience is that babies are like, yay, meat stock. And if they're not, if your baby, like one issue that I've come up against with a lot of people is that like, they're like, my baby only wants to nurse. My baby just wants to nurse. He's not really eating enough solids. I want him to eat more solids, but like, he's not, and so this is where you as the parent just have to be consistent, like even just one swipe of meat stock in their mouth, one swipe of bone marrow in their mouth, continuously offering it to them because in 5 minutes they could want it again, right? So we're just continuously presenting this food in front of them and getting it inside their mouth, and eventually their microbiome, their ecosystem will shift and they will crave and want these foods and rely on them more. Okay, so then we go through a series of more of foods such as cooked vegetables. So things like squash, things like carrot, broccoli, leek, onion. There's a lot of different vegetables that are appropriate for babies. I personally leave out potatoes, sweet potatoes, parsnips, because of the starch content. So that starch content is going to feed pathogenic bacteria. So I'm leaving those starchy vegetables out. Carrots are approved. They are a fine food for babies. However, my experience with carrots was that it was way too sugary initially. And so I did not do carrots. Like I tried it one day and I just got this like weepy, whiny, totally like crazy. I was actually living with another GAPS practitioner at the time and we were shocked because Augie had been going along also well and fine and dandy. And we gave him a little bit of carrot and it was like, okay, he's not ready. So what that told me is that the carrots fed the yeast off-gassed or acted up. And that created a whiny, clingy fussy baby for me. And so the carrots out. Now, with all of this style of food introduction, another thing I hear all the time is like, but how will I get the allergenic foods in? Like, apparently the knowledge today, or the advice is like to give them small amounts of the allergenic foods when they're young so that they don't develop a lifelong allergy, which I don't agree with, because we want to build the gut so that these babies grow into healthy and robust children that can digest lots of different foods. And we do that by keeping those allergenic foods out until the gut is healed and sealed, until the immune system is really strong, until there's a store of nutrients in the body that prevent the allergies from happening. So the allergies are coming because the leaky gut is there, and the immune system turns on and flags a food and says, this food is a toxin, this food is not where it's meant to be, and we must attack any tissues that look like this food. So the body will start to attack itself. This is how we create autoimmune disorders. It will be an immune storm because it's trying to clean up toxicity. So in my experience and my training, you learn how to develop the baby's gut through the healing foods that are traditional and appropriate for what they can digest. And then you expand out from there. So like, I mean, the most foods that Augie has diversity in is meats and fats. So he eats a lot of meats and fats. We include fermented foods, which he does really well. And babies, this is the same with the babies in my courses. They start with meats and fats. They introduce fermented foods, and then they introduce the vegetables. And typically also with babies, sometimes fruits, because they have more enzymes, they're actually easier and simpler for the babies to digest. So like things like banana, squash, depending on your baby, that might be a great food for them, but you have to watch for the symptoms. You have to watch and see what comes up. Like Augie just doesn't have that much fruit because I just don't see it doing that well with him right now. Like it's fine. He can rely on those other nutrient dense foods, and he has his whole life for fruit, which we will enjoy fruit. And who knows, even the summer's coming around, like maybe his gut will be, well enough for him to enjoy raspberries, local seasonal raspberries. Cause I did give him fruit. If you follow me on Instagram, you can watch my video where what happened when I gave him a strawberry, Okay. So thank you everyone for your attention. And I see that there's a lot of questions. I want to cover in the next couple minutes, the last portion of the class, which is talking about eczema. So we've covered here a lot about the gut flora, how the gut flora works, how we pass our microbiome, what possibly could be going on with our kids, what's going on with us as adults. And one of the biggest issues that we're seeing today is eczema and skin issues. Essentially, when the body cannot process toxins through the gut, through the bowels, they start to come out through the skin. And when the microbiome of the skin is not strong enough, without enough nutrients, it leaves a mark. And so that's what a rash is. So it's basically toxins coming out of the skin and the skin not having enough nutrients to clear it itself, and it leaves a mark. And this can become chronic because of the way that our immune system works. So we have two branches of our immune system, and one is meant to flag pieces, flag particles and proteins, and train the rest of the system to fear this toxin, right? It's read as a toxin. So this is how skin things can also become chronic. The immune system says, hey, we really need to get that under wraps, and we need to keep making sure that that's okay, or clearing it out of the body, right? So what are the things that heal skin? Collagen, vitamin C, fat-soluble vitamins, minerals. Where are we getting all of those things? From our food, but we need our gut flora to be functioning in order to digest and assimilate that. So we have to work on the gut flora, and we have to heal and seal leaky gut. How do we do that? Meat stock. It's really as simple as that. And I don't know, that kind of makes me laugh, because it's like, yeah, there really are just a few things that we can do and see a lot of changes. Now, sometimes we need to also support the skin itself. So we need to support the skin microbiome. So that means no steroids, no soaps, no chemicals, nothing on the body that is going to interfere with the microbiome of our skin, which is very protective and healthy and healing for us. We need this to be strong and robust. And so that means eating those healing foods, which are going to support the gut and also heal the skin. And topically, we can put our probiotics on our skin. We can put animal fats on our skin to help our skin have moisture and nutrients to heal the wound. And we need to remove the offenders. So whatever is feeding the gut flora, yeast is causing eczema. So whatever is feeding the yeast, we need to get the yeast in check. We need to balance the microbiome. And by doing that, we're likely removing whatever's feeding the yeast as well. So that can be grains, sugar, even sometimes honey. Like honey is a very good and healing food, but we might have to remove it for a period of time. And anytime we remove a food, we must do the work of rebuilding the gut. That's the whole catch. Most elimination diets don't rebuild the microbiome or the gut. When you rebuild the gut, then you reintroduce the foods and you don't have a problem because your digestion is changed and improved, right? So that's sort of how that goes. Skin, yeast, eczema. And this is related to the atopic triad, okay? So the atopic triad, you maybe have heard of this. I actually just heard that this is all grouped together. Well, I knew it was all grouped together, but I didn't know it's called the atopic triad. So eczema, eczema, allergies, asthma. Those are the three. They go together. Why? The liver, our liver is needed to remove toxins from the body. Our liver has to be healthy and robust. When the liver is overburdened or without enough nutrients, that starts to overburden the lungs. Okay, the lungs are actually detox organs, which is not often talked about, but they help us to remove our fat-soluble vitamins. If we think about our lungs, they have a mucillary escalators, which lift toxins up and out of the body. When you're coughing, when you have a bronchial thing, that's good. You want to get that mucus out. Anytime the body's producing mucus, there's toxins in there. We want to get that out, okay? So we want to lift it up and out, and that's what the body does. So if the liver's overburdened, then it starts to affect the lungs. That's where asthma comes in, okay? And we know that if the liver is overburdened, it's likely because leaky gut is happening. So that's where the allergies come in. So food allergies, leaky gut, okay? The food particles are leaking into the bloodstream and that's causing issues. Then that's impacting the liver because the liver doesn't have nutrients because the digestion's dysfunctioning. The liver is overburdened and can't detoxify. Then it impacts the lungs, okay? And that's where asthma comes in. So it's a triad. And what are we doing in conventional medicine with this? We're giving steroids. We're giving suppressing drugs to stop the bronchial spasm happening. And that's why asthma has become a life-threatening disease and diagnosis. It's because of the drugs that suppress what the body does. And most children, when they first have their asthma attack, it's because they've had something sweet, cold, and sugary. So usually like an ice cream will flare their first asthma reaction. And that is then a very scary situation, okay? Because our child's not breathing, rush to the hospital, get the steroids, suppress the natural excavation that the lungs are supposed to be doing, and we get on this cycle, right? And of course, those steroids are also damaging the skin, they're damaging the gut, and they're difficult for the liver. All right, so that covers what I wanted to teach on today. In Mama Baby Biome, we cover all these topics and more thoroughly. We cook every week together to support what I teach you in the nutrition classes, and we have Q&As so that you can ask me what you need, what's come up. And this also happens in our Facebook group. So there's a lot of chatter in the Facebook group, which I love, pictures of delicious meals, questions about what's going on, recipe questions for help, needing support to get your, nail down your fermentations, all that. And for now, we're going to open up for Q&As. But if you have to go, you can use the coupon code, which is, Alex, are you putting that in the chat? 120. So 120 off. Super. Okay. So my course full price is $497. I do this every time I launch my courses. The first day I have a super early bird price, which is $120 off. And I don't offer that price again after 24 hours. And then I run another sale, but it's never as good as the first sale. So if you know that you want this, if you know you want to cook more with me and you want to be in the kitchen together, then sign up today because that's the best deal. We have a payment plan, whether you sign up today or later, but the payment plan is also offered for this and there's no additional charge for the payment plan. Okay. So I have a bunch of pre-submitted questions. I also want to go back through these questions and I would love to come off mute if anybody wants to come off mute and discuss anything with me, because it's like a lot for me to just talk the whole time. I love it, but you know, it's a lot of talking. It's great to have dialogue. All right. So salt, herbs and veggies. What herbs and veggies do you put in your baby's meat stock when you first introduce it? I do just plain chicken meat stock with feet and necks for babies to start. That's it. So any plant foods can be more difficult to digest. I can go further into that. And like I said, my full solid foundations food introduction class is included in Mama Baby Biome. I have a very picky 9-month-old that's struggling with solids. Yeah, this is common. So the gut flora is ruling picky eating. Okay. And so we need to heal the gut flora. There's a couple things you can do. You can take a probiotic yourself, like a probiotic supplement. You can start on probiotic foods. You can also drop a small amount of probiotics into their mouth. I would go meat stock first, and then a very small amount. So I'm talking like a pinhead amount of probiotics to start, because these can cause die-off. So we want the system to be able to take it in without too much pain as the baby, or mostly the mothers, right? Like we have to manage this. Okay, once you've taken collagen from the chicken feet, how long can you keep it? I think meat stock stays in the fridge for like 7 to 10 days, especially if it's under a layer of fat, but your nose always knows. Okay, so after 5 days, if you're getting uncomfortable with the amount of time your meat's been in the fridge, put it in the freezer so you don't waste it. And if you smell something and it knocks your head off, it's not good. Okay, it's not good. Do not eat it. If it smells like iffy, then you can make your decision. I sometimes, like if it's raw meat, I'll like wash it with apple cider vinegar and still cook it. Or, like if it's meat stock, I'll boil it really, boil it for like 2 minutes to get anything out. But if it doesn't smell like anything, it's still good. Okay, your nose knows. All right. Do you worry about too much cholesterol with fat and meat products? No, I do not. Cholesterol is a highly misunderstood nutrient, and unfortunately it's been demonized. And every dietary guideline is typically made based on men. Women and children need cholesterol so much that in women's breast milk, there's a special enzyme for the baby to ingest every ounce, every bit of cholesterol that is provided through the breast milk. Cholesterol is extremely healing. It is the food for our brain. It is the food for our adrenals. It is a delicious and healing food. And I dispel all the myths in the course as well. What if you can't always afford organic grass-fed organs? I recommend buying organs and fat, grass-fed, pasture-raised, and everything else buy conventional if you can't afford it at this time. The organs are really powerful healers. They stretch and they're typically much, much cheaper. Like sometimes you can even get them for like $1, $2 or free, right? $2 a pound. In more, what am I trying to say? More urban areas, typically there's like, I think a higher price point of the organ meats. In more rural areas, I find a lower price point for the organ meats. But some animal food is better than no animal food. So knowing the idea that we store fats and toxins, we store toxins in fat, make sure you get your lard and your tallow pasture raised and your organs meats as well, just because they're already more affordable. And then like your ground beef, you could get conventional or your something like that. Yeah.
And lamb is almost
always
grass-fed.
You want to come over and say that?
Sure.
Hi. So in terms of meat, I go to a lot of farms and I see a lot of them. Yeah. And If grass-fed beef can be expensive, but lamb often will not be labeled grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised, but lambs do not live if they don't eat grass, unlike a beef, which is a much larger animal, and they can kind of survive off getting grain finished. So lamb is always a great option. So is goat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great tip. So Alex is our support. He's obviously the father of my child, and he supports the partners in the class. He gives
Yep.
us our butcher's corner. So he gives a really cool perspective on raising and slaughtering animals and, you know, how it works. You have a lot of unique insight, and he also runs all the behind the scenes. He built my website and everything. So I'm really grateful for Alex.
Yeah, and one more thing about liver, I heard you talking about liver earlier.
Yeah.
A lot, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you don't like the taste of liver and you've only tried beef liver, that animal is usually 2 to 3 years old. So give lamb or pork liver a try, because they're usually butchered around 1 year old. So that means that liver, that detox organ, has had less time to kind of go through the motions of detoxifying. So it's younger, it's usually a lot sweeter tasting. It doesn't have that off-putting liver taste that so many people don't like. I grew up in the South. I love liver. We ate it a lot, but I do understand sometimes, like, I'm like, I don't want to eat this, man. Come on. So we get the troubles, but our freezer is full of it.
And when you don't want to eat it, that's a sign that your body is carrying a heavy toxic load.
Yeah. And we have tons
so
of
we
great
always push
recipes
through
for liver.
Yeah, we do. We have tons of great recipes for liver, and we teach liver all the time because it's been such a big needle mover for our family. And just like, it has this mysterious anti-fatigue factor. And I think it has to do with
Chemical X.
vitamin X.
I was just making that up.
Vitamin, you know, the X factor from Weston A. Price. Anyway, very good, very good. All about liver. What else in the meat stock do you use beyond the raw meat and bones? Any herbs and veg? Yes, I like to use any herbs. I mean, the main ones that we don't use are the brassicas. So like kale, broccoli stems, those kind of things. Be a cabbage that's too strong in the meat stock. It imparts a flavor that's not really good. But anything like carrot, onion, a little bit of celery is delicious. Celery can be difficult to digest. The high fiber foods are more hard to digest. So anything that has like really tight knit close fibers like celery, like when you break it open, you can literally see the fiber. Juicing celery is excellent because we're getting all the nutrients, but we're not having to digest the fiber, right? But carrots, onions, mushrooms, herbs. I love sage. I make a meat stock oftentimes that's just meat and salt and plenty of it, and it's so good. Or like meat, salt, and a little bit of peppercorns and sage. Love sage. You mentioned partners sharing microbiomes being sex. My partner often has itchy testicles. Is there anything you recommend, whether it be food or lifestyle changes, tests, things to look into? Yeah, itchy genitals is usually yeast. So I would start doing milk kefir. I would start doing meat stock daily. I would start taking a probiotic before you guys have sex. You can put kefir all over both of your genitals. I think that is a good thing to do. Kefir is made from milk. It's called like the champagne of milk. I have a whole module on raw milk and how to ferment our milk and why dairy is a healing food and what to do if you can't digest dairy. As you can see, there's so many topics really to cover here, and there's a lot that I love to say about it. And that's why I made a course.
And cut the bread.
Oh yeah, and cut bread. Good. Yeah, so Alex says his balls stop itching when he cuts out bread.
Well, I didn't say that.
Yeah, that's what he meant. Do you serve meat stock in a sippy cup? Yes, I serve meat stock in all the ways. I serve it on a spoon. I serve it in jelly form. He can pick it up with his fingers. I serve it in he uses this cup a lot, like that we have to handle for him.
Yeah.
Right, so we use a little mug. Augie's meat stock cup. But yeah, have you found GAPS diet can help with milk supply? My milk ducts were somehow pumping, but they're healed now, or blocked. Maybe you meant blocked from pumping, but they're healed now. We think my supply took quite a hit. I mainly eat Mediterranean diet, but my supply has never come back enough to give my child a full feeding at one time between solids. Okay, great question. I absolutely think that the GAPS nutritional protocol will help your milk supply. for that, I would lean into like squashes, plenty of fats. Like it could be a thing about not getting enough fat and protein, like make sure you mama are fed really and feel really, really good. And then I might also lean into, if you're already doing grains, like make sure you're properly preparing rice, plenty of full fat dairy. I have some more follow-up questions about that, but yes, I do think that eating more organs meats, eating more meat close to the bone, more proteins, more stock, all of that will help you. Yeah, the carrot. Yeah, it will help tremendously. Yes. Yes. Around what age does the baby's gut heal and seal? The baby's gut heal and seals, I think around 5 or 6 months. I need to check about that exactly, but it's closing around the same time that we're introducing solid foods. And I might be wrong. It might be in the first 3 weeks. So I'll have to check on that, Simona, because I know I have that written down somewhere. But the breast milk helps to close the gut. Like that's part of what's going on. There's components in the breast that will help in the breast milk that helps to heal and seal the gut. And so we just want to continue to support that with the solid food introduction. Like that's why it's so important and good, right? To like make sure that we're giving the baby plenty of collagen and easy to digest proteins so that they can keep building the gut. Yeah, so for solid food introductions for starting, this is a range for people. So it's very, very bio-individual. If your child is alert and looking at your food and like looking really interested in trying your foods, that's a good sign. Okay. I think that there's no perfect time to introduce solids. I did it around 5.5 months. And I think that, I probably could have waited till 6 because it did get a little like his behavior change, things change when you introduce solids. It definitely is not the same as just doing breast milk. So if your baby's on a formula, then you can start meat stock at 4 months old and use the Solid Foundation's way of getting off formula. So you can use meat stock to wean off of formula, which is great. Like you don't want your kid on a formula because it's a processed food and that's going to not support their gut health. What about the risk of too much protein? I read that the very high protein diet in infancy may increase the likelihood of obesity in childhood later in life. Good question. So I'm not just giving protein, I'm giving protein and fat. I'm giving protein and fermented foods. Augie's not eating like a bunch of lean protein. In fact, we don't give lean protein, we give meat close to the bone. So this is very collagen rich foods that melt in the baby's mouth practically, or they're already melted down because of the way that I cooked them. So the reason why a protein would contribute to like obesity and well, first of all, I'd have to look at the study to see like what's up with all that research, like research is, you really got to like actually read what's happening, read how many participants did they use? What are the other factors? Like there's just nutrition research is really hard to kind of get a handle on.
What sort of protein?
But yeah, so like,
was it meat?
Yeah. What sort of protein? And then like, yes, protein can spike our blood sugar. So protein can cause us to have issues with our insulin and other blood sugar regulating hormones, but not if we're eating fat with our protein and not if we're eating protein that's like meat close to the bone. So a lean steak, like that just doesn't even really make sense for a baby unless they're gnawing on it to like, help their gums and that kind of thing. But yeah. Mostly fatty cuts of meat. How do you wash produce correctly? I don't wash my produce if I get it from a farmer that I know and trust and it's organic. I just don't wash it. But I would use filtered water if I wanted to wash it. I wouldn't use any like soap necessarily, but I'm not an expert on that since I don't wash my produce. Just want to share that I had really intense childhood eczema and asthma and allergies. And I learned today that the first food my mom gave me repeatedly was vanilla soft serve ice cream. It makes sense. I'm sorry. Yeah, our parents, they didn't know. And we're really lucky because now we know. And there's that sort of, yeah, like my mom put corn syrup in my bottle, like it's just, they didn't know. That's just pure sugar. It was supposed to help with constipation. And, that was the start of wrecking my microbiome, hormone imbalances. So it's really powerful that you're here and that you have the information that you have now. It's It's just crazy. We've just been like completely brainwashed to believe that the foods that are good and healing for us are gonna kill us, literally. Ingrained so much fear in us that we, for generations, are fearing certain foods and taught to eat other foods that are actually really damaging for the body. So it's pretty backwards. And here we are, ready to heal it. Yes, can we also circle back to helping a C-section's gut microbiome? Thank you for the reminder. And then there's also the mercury and cod liver oil question. So C-section babies, I had a C-section, and obviously that was not my plan. And whenever I get nervous, when I was pregnant, and whenever I would get nervous about Augie having issues with just growing up, or, you know, some sort of chronic disease or some sort of problem, I would always find solace in the foods that I could provide for him that can help his body heal. So what I noticed, my child spit up multiple times a day, every single day, from when he was first born until about 5 months old, or 3 months old. At 3 months old, I went on full GAPS again. I was like my postpartum, it was like too much of an emotional jump for me to go and cut out sugar and cut out grains. I couldn't go there. And I think that that's something that is a deeper conversation that I can talk to you, personally about, like what foods you're ready for, and, just how to make sense of it all, right? Like that's something that we definitely cover in Mama Baby Biome. When should you really try, and when is it just too much, and how can you sort of meet yourself in the middle? So anyway, I needed to eat the cookie or whatever I thought I did. And so I knew that there was a correlation. Everyone's like, oh, it's normal. Babies spit up. It's da, 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 da. I'm just like, it's not though. I know it's not. I can feel it in my bones. I know it's yeast. Like, I know I'm feeding my yeast. He's getting this sugary breast milk. It's causing him to throw up. Like that's just the reality. But everyone tried to make me feel better because I'm a new mom. So thanks. Anyway, so I cut out, finally I got the strength, and I was like, I can do it. I'm doing it. And I cut out grains, and I cut out sugar. I was eating tons of organ meats. I started to feel so good. I felt pretty good my whole postpartum, but like Augie's spit up went away 80%. And I swear to you, I introduced meat stock. He did a big belch and then never spit up again. So what I make of that is that the meat stock healed his stomach lining. So in the C-section, not only are they not going through the physiologic birth, they're not getting the wash of the vaginal microbiome, but they're also getting antibiotics. So through the breast milk, because of the surgery, they're getting drugs through the surgery. So this is very damaging to the system. It's sloughed off like it's not. It's talked about like it's not that big of a deal. Everyone holds C-sections as just, thank goodness that this happened. And I have a space for that too in my heart. Thankfully, my baby and I are healthy. Yes. And there's another track running here, which is that I had a surgery, a deep surgery. It impacted my system. I was given drugs and antibiotics. So I have to now heal many, many layers of my tissue. Mothers, we have to heal many layers of our tissue. We have to support our microbiomes in a unique way, and we have to develop our children's microbiomes because they missed out and they got disruption, right? Like that's just the reality. And it's so, I feel like I have to be so brave to say that, because everybody just I spent like a year after my birth basically just being like, yeah, that was like not such a big deal, right? Like, that's kind of what everyone around you wants you to think, but it really is a big deal. And so, yes, it impacts the mother's healing and the baby's healing. And what I have put together in Mama Baby Biome is the exact steps that I go through every single day, because I'm still on my healing journey, to support my body and my baby's body, because it's so important. And I know that I can heal anything. But to just ignore this huge thing that happened in my life, no more, right? Like, I'm not ignoring that, and I'm going to help other mothers not ignore it either, because everyone else wants to slough it off, right? And even if your baby was born vaginally, you could have a lot of problems because of the damage in our microbiomes, right? And so, yeah, there's just a lot a lot there, and a great opportunity to heal, which we can. So there's 16 new messages in the chat, and I have also more questions that I have gotten pre-recorded. So we'll stay on for more questions. I'm going to keep answering questions. I'm going to try to get through everyone's. And I also just want to say that I will likely be teaching another free class this week. So if you want to hop on and join me again, you can. You'll be getting emails about the course that's upcoming. I really hope you join. Last time we had 40 people join the class, and it was incredible. We had amazing results, which you'll be reading in your email. You'll be seeing what other mothers have gone through going through this course. We have a payment plan. We want to make it affordable for you. This is about organizing your kitchen, setting up the terrain of your kitchen, shopping locally, cooking foods consistently. Like every time you're live with me, we are going to cook our little buns off, because we don't have a ton of time as mothers. So when we're in the kitchen together, we need to be getting it done, right? And so I have a lot of recipes. We learn new skills. We make delicious food. And at the end of the class, you have ideally a clean kitchen, because we do clean as we go, and a whole lot of food to eat through the week. And this is so powerful. So if you're newly postpartum, get in with your partner, right? Your partner can do these cook-alongs and cook for you through the week. If you're 6 months old, if your baby's 6 months old, you're 6 months postpartum, and you want to learn these skills, you can wear your baby, you can have your husband cook, or your partner cook, or your, like you can watch the recordings and do it after your baby's asleep. So we have about half the people in the class who come live and do the cook-alongs live. And then we have about half who watch the recordings, and the people who watch the recordings, they post their videos, they post their pictures of their food after the class. We all see it in the Facebook group. They're loving it all the same. And a lot of people from Mama Baby Biome, the first round, are joining again because they want to keep cooking. So you have the course materials for life, but there's going to always be an option to join a live cook-along component from me. And that's really like the heart of what I do and what I teach. It's like, yes, I can sit here and I can lecture to you and I can tell you all the things about the microbiome, but until you get in the kitchen and start doing the work, it's not going to change. And so you can do that with or without me, but I hope you do it with me, because it's so fun. And I'm so touched by the people that do this with me. Okay. Kendra has her hand raised. I'm just going to answer this one question. Do you recommend the next Mama Baby Biome for pregnant women, or more for once you have the baby? Everything that I teach in Mama Baby Biome is the protocol I used for preparing my body for pregnancy. So at some point in 2 or so years, I'll have a course for pregnancy and for fertility. But like right now, I have this Mama Baby Biome centric class, which is applicable to, postpartum, immediate postpartum, pregnancy, and preconception, because it's pretty much all the same information, right? Like it supports the body. So if you're pregnant and you have energy, is that what you said? Let me see. Yeah. So if you're pregnant and you have the energy right now, I think it's great, because this will also help you prepare like postpartum foods. A big part of preparing for the postpartum is having foods in your freezer, right? So like you can take these cook-alongs, you can take the recipes, the cookbook, and start prepping your food and having it in the freezer, and you can prepare for your birth through this. Like you can use probiotics and kefir and all this amazing stuff to get your body and your ecosystem prepared for birth, which will support your baby's health. Okay, so the probiotic you keep mentioning is the meat stock. No, meat stock is not a probiotic food, but it's a gut healing food. And then probiotics are the brines that we make, the homemade foods. It's like homemade dairy that we make. And there's even probiotic supplements that can support as well, but they're not as powerful as food. How to best support a baby who has eczema from birth? Gut healing. So all the things that we've been talking about, supporting your gut healing. And I have a skin and eczema guide that I include in Mama Baby Biome. Yes. Okay. So top recommendations for an older child, 4 to 5 years, to ease into a more healing diet. So once they're a little bit older, it is more challenging. It is not impossible. I had a lot of moms in this class who had a 6-month-old baby and a 3 or 4-year-old baby, and they worked with GAPS to rearrange their palates. Their children are less picky. Their children are eating more proteins and fats, relying less on fruits. Skin stuff is clearing up. So in the course, you will learn about all of these ways. The top thing that I would do is start working with meat stock, use meat stock as the healing food, use meat stock before any other food that they get, and rely on meat stock for yourself as well so that you know it in your own body. My midwife recommended I gave the baby liquid probiotics because she's constipated and gassy. I've been giving it to her for a couple months. She's 5 months. Should I stop giving them to her? Do you see good results with them? Do they have additives? What about game meat? Excellent. Not a question, just want to say thank you, and I look forward to taking your course and cooking with you. I'm coming from a typical toxic American diet through my childhood and into early adulthood. I find you explain all these concepts beautifully. Oh, wonderful. Well, that's because I also came from that background. I had Captain Crunch every day and pizza rolls and bagel bites, so we're on the same page. Alex, would you recommend the same rules for heart? Lamb heart versus beef heart for less awful flavoring?
Yeah, well, we find heart rides the line. Like it is a muscle and an organ meat.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So we personally don't find heart very gamey, but yeah,
we love lamb heart. It's delicious. Yes, try all. If you don't like beef heart, try it from another animal.
Yeah, the younger the animal, the more tender and the less gamey it's going to be. That's tends to be true with all animals.
Okay. All right.
And heart's so good.
Heart's so good.
Love heart.
Heart's so good. How often would you give meat stock to a 1-year-old? About 1 to 3 cups a day for a healing. New mom and grass-fed cattle farmer in the UK. Yes. Woo woo. You're welcome. Protein electrolytes have helped with my milk supply. Yes. Can you shed more light on ear infections? Yeah, so ear infections are going to be in that same atopic triad situation, the immune system. Okay, so ear infections happen because we don't have enough beneficial microbes to keep pathogens out, right? And when the gut is degraded, we have foods that continuously break down those probiotic strains in the microbiome. Ear infections happen, and then what do we do for them? We give antibiotics, which proliferates the problem. So we have specific ways of working and healing ear infections naturally. I would recommend working with a homeopathic practitioner, putting your child on the GAPS nutritional protocol, healing and sealing the gut, and giving more nutrient dense foods, like same with strep. So for strep, anytime you have a strep infection, you want to work with the probiotics. You sometimes have to take antibiotics for strep because it can be life-threatening, but you can do other things to support your body while on antibiotics, which I also cover. Like, what do you do if you have to take antibiotics in a life-threatening situation? How can you support and heal your microbiome? I can help you with that. There are things that you can do. You can actually take probiotics while taking antibiotics. Certain strains will support you. And then for strep throat, like ghee, lots of nourishing fats, and slow cooked scrambled eggs will be really nourishing for the throat. Okay. Which milk can you recommend for a lactose intolerance baby? Well, so that's a bigger question because I wouldn't necessarily recommend milk for a lactose intolerance baby. I would recommend healing and sealing the gut, and then slowly introducing dairy, starting with ghee, using a specific dairy introduction protocol after plenty of healing is done, but I would need to know more about the situation. I don't use Instant Pot for meat stock. Does Cradle Cap have a connection? Yes, Cradle Cap is yeast. Thanks for all the love. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for addressing C-section. It was not my plan at all. We both had many complications. Yes, exactly. Most people do, because it's a very complicated situation. Thank you, Kate. You're welcome. Okay. Oh, Grace. I just got done taking the course and it's absolutely incredible. Oh, thank you, Grace. I'm so glad you're here. Yay. Thanks, Grace. Yeah, we have a lot of fun. And my son's outside right now, but maybe he'll come in right at the end. Any specific things you noticed that built up your milk supply? I mean, my milk supply was pretty so I tend towards blood deficiency in Chinese medicine. So milk supply makes sense that I have like a little bit less. But what I noticed impacts my milk supply is eating enough. Like if I don't eat enough, if I don't eat 3 to 5 meals a day, like I don't have enough milk, and that makes me feel depleted and exhausted. And I know that Augie's like hungry. That's another reason why I love relying on these nutrient dense solid foods, because that will help him like feel more full. And I still nurse because I love to, and he loves to, and it's age appropriate, all of that. But like I don't have to only I don't have to always rely on my milk to be the main feeder. Okay, did I miss the answer to whether I take cod liver oil with mercury fillings as a breastfeeding mama? You didn't miss the answer. I think that cod liver oil is okay with mercury fillings, and I'm going to double check this and send out something to you somehow. Get this message. I think I'll just put it in the show notes, actually. I'm pretty sure that the fish you want to avoid when you are a breastfeeding mother with mercury fillings is the high mercury fish. So cod liver oil is not a high mercury fish. It's very safe and it's extracted properly. And I would recommend using the fermented cod liver oil from Green Pastures. Okay, Kendra.
Hey, Kate.
Hey.
I just want to say I feel so excited to be here. And it was about 8 years ago, I started nerding through for Lyme disease to heal my gut with paleo and GAPS, and learning a lot of new skills in the kitchen. And it just feels so exciting to see everything you're putting out and how excited you are about teaching it. I don't feel like this lone little weirdo doing all these like I don't know, like black sheep kind of things in like the health world anymore. And something that came up just the other day, maybe you have an insight on this, is I guess I read somewhere, or maybe like my intuition guided me, that like turmeric would be good to lower a fever for my child. So sometimes I will like boil it in milk and give it to him. I mean, I did it yesterday. It seemed to help, but maybe you know, or you've had some experience with like turmeric as a fever reducer.
Interesting. I don't know much about turmeric, the herb itself. I know that it's anti-inflammatory, so that makes sense as far as like fever reduction. I'm more of a ginger girl myself, so I'm always with the ginger, not as much with the turmeric. Turmeric is a bit drying for me, and I also tend towards anxiety, so it just doesn't like go. I don't love it as much, but every once in a while I'll have like a ginger milk tea, and so just cooking that turmeric in lots of ghee and using the black pepper, getting the fat and the curcumin and the piperine, those products, or the elements in all the herbs, the combo, right? That's what really makes it more bioavailable. So I'm sure you already did all of that. And yeah, keep following your intuition. I think that's great. It makes sense. Like, and constitutionally, certain herbs are better for certain people. So I know that a lot of people do really, really well in turmeric. Yeah. And thank you for your words. And I'm so glad you're here too. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to come on mute and say anything? Okay. So I have some pre-recorded questions that, does someone want to come on? Say anything? Here's a baby. Lots of babies. Hi. Cute. So I have some questions that were sent in to me beforehand, and I want to address them. And then we'll probably close. I have a poem that it's not really a poem. It's kind of a poem. Okay. So what if my kids are preteens now and they have some of the symptoms and or diagnosis? Will changing their diet now affect them positively? Yes. In some cases, like if it's an autism diagnosis or a more severe diagnosis, and there's been some permanent brain damage that's happened, maybe not all the symptoms will go away. However, we see a big reduction in symptoms of like stimming, drooling, and other things in adults. I don't know if your child has an autism diagnosis, but I'm just using that as an example because that can be one of the symptoms that like not everything fully goes away, but there's just a lot more ease and peace in the body. And so same with your children, like starting preteen, that's actually a great age because they're going to start going through puberty, and like you want to get them plenty of healthy fats and diversity of foods, support their microbiome. The microbiome is a endocrine organ, or it could be considered an endocrine organ in itself, because our endocrine organs like our adrenals and our hypothalamus and our ovaries, pituitary gland, like all of those are so sensitive to toxicity. So we really need our microbiome to be robust to protect those endocrine organs. This is why we have so many hormonal problems. And today everyone has hormone issues because we have a degraded microbiome. And I'm in the camp that anyone can heal anything. I'd love to know where to start repairing the gut for my kids and myself. I'm switching over to supporting my eating, but it's new for us. And I'm curious how to make the switch. Yeah. So one of the things that I teach about in Mama Baby Biome is that like kids are really, depending on their age, you know, you kind of have to know your kid and know what your kid likes, but like anything to throw them off their game, like if you're trying to introduce new foods and they're really resistant to them, anything to like get them to be silly, like we're all wearing hats for dinner. Obviously that's going to work better for a 3 to 5 year old than it is for an 11-year-old, but like anything to get them to bring their guard down, like prepping them. If you're going to start a healing protocol, prep them. We're going to eat soup for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is going to be so silly. You know, it's like, what can you do to get them excited and on board and prepared? Because it is kind of a difficult challenge. And so I talk about picky eating and getting people on healing protocols, working with kids, different strategies to get them on board in the class. Exclusively breastfeeding mama of a 6-month-old with eczema. We're just starting to introduce solids. I'm suspecting that my gut health has negatively affected his gut and skin, but I'm worried about endotoxins and die-off getting to him through my breast milk if I begin to pursue healing for myself. Where do you suggest that I start? I suggest that you start with full gaps. It's going to be healing and nutritive and building for you, but not causing too much die-off. It's just totally safe for breastfeeding mothers. And then with him starting solids, you'll see that his body starts to heal on his own without getting fed by your milk. So it's kind of like breast milk is so healing and so beautiful for those babes, but it also contains, I mean, I know it contains yeast, right? And yeast is cleanser. So the yeast is there for a reason, but if it's imbalanced, then it's going to be contributing yeast to their bodies or feeding sugars, giving them sugars to feed the yeast in their bodies. And that's what's causing the eczema. So you got to get the yeast under control, which is a step-by-step process using meat stock, using fermented foods, specifically fermented dairy and kefir, which you introduce slowly. And, you know, as you're going through solids, I recommend using the GAPS method of introducing solids so that you build your baby's gut and you'll see a lot of great results. I've been challenged with eczema for my whole life, and with stress, it gets worse. My body struggles to digest fat and I get rashes from eating too much fat or from meat or vegetables. I also get nauseous when I eat too much fat. At the moment, I'm eating only steamed vegetables and fruits, all local, organic, and in season. So stress kills our gut flora. So we need to overall reduce stress in our life. And that's why in Mama Baby Biome, when we're together, we're cooking, we're using the time wisely and making healing foods that are going to also support our stress throughout the week, right? Fat digestion tells me that you have a stagnant gallbladder. So there is a little bit of discomfort when you initially add in more fats. That helps your gallbladder to secrete, and that's uncomfortable. I've passed tons of gallstones as an adult and it's not fun, but once it's passed, yay, the gallstone's out. And then for an environmental situation, you want to be just supporting your microbiome. You can use things like green juices, bitter herbs, bitter greens that will all help to reduce the instances of parasites and stones that are clogged up in your gallbladder, which reduces your fat assimilation. Rashes when you're eating meats, that could be considered a healing reaction. You know, I'd have to know a little bit more, but just because your body is reacting to something or showing you something through your skin, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's not the food for you, which is a big thing that a lot of people don't understand and that I try to teach. It's like healing is also symptomatic. Okay. And we need to support our environment so that when we are healing, those symptoms lessen and lessen and lessen, because we're supporting we're giving the body what it needs to continue to do that healing rather than suppressing or taking away that healing food. Steamed fruit and vegetable is actually cleansing. So that's going to be supportive to your body for a degree, but you want to make sure that you also eventually go back to building foods because your body needs meat and vegetable or meat and protein to rebuild, and fats. I've done everything I know to boost my daughter's gut health, but it feels like she needs more somehow. She has a really healthy, organic, anti-inflammatory diet, low wheat, dairy, and no eggs, no refined sugar, with organic meats, veg, broth, organic fruit, and wild food, which helps. She has kefir and sauerkraut most days. I'm curious about what else I can do. I'd love for her to be able to eat eggs. I'm wondering about how I'm wondering if it's a good idea to cut them out entirely. Occasionally, once or twice a year, we try her on a bit of egg and sure enough, itchy and inflammation on her skin again. Okay, so if I wanted to heal my child's egg allergy, this is what I would do. I would cut out wheat completely. I would also do a period with no sugar, even if you're doing honey or maybe keep a little honey. But yeah, no sugar, even if it's like coconut sugar, any of that. I would increase meat stock and I would remove eggs completely for 6 weeks. And then when I reintroduce them, I would start with a pinhead of just the yolk. So just like a drop of the yolk in the meat stock. And so we're using the meat stock to rebuild the gut lining. And then I would use just a small amount of egg, watch for any symptoms. If that was fine, I would stay with the same amount of egg and do that same amount every day until I was sure there was no symptoms. And then I would increase the amount until she can eat the full egg yolk. And I would stay on egg yolks for quite a while. And then when I introduced the white, I would do just a drop of the white and watch for symptoms and go the same like that. I would also increase detox baths to support her body of detoxifying, because egg whites are actually detoxifying. Eggs are a very healing food. And so the white could actually be showing you that there's some other toxins. And I love your intuition of like, you're like, I'm right there, but I feel like there's more. And oftentimes there are pieces of the puzzle that are just, we can't see as moms and see as being like so close. And so that's where having someone like me to say bird's eye view here, let me help you out a bit. And that's what I would do. So like, rotate through the detox supplements in her bath. Like it's very subtle healing. I saw this thing on Instagram that was like, I would never use a detox support for my baby. It's like, they're like, we have organs for that. And I'm like, yeah, but like our organs are damaged because we live in a crazy toxic world. So yeah, bentonite clay is helpful. Baking soda is helpful. Apple cider vinegar is supportive, right? It's not extreme or damaging. It's just like, also, what about tap water? Like we have to neutralize the toxins in tap water, you know? This is all information that we're not taught. It's not mainstream. And so that's why I like to arm you as the parents with information so that you can go forward trusting yourself, because you have knowledge about how the body works and supporting the ecosystem. If my baby has gut and skin issues, does that mean it's my fault? Did I give them the bad gut biome in utero? So I pretty much answered that question. It has to do with your body, but it's not your fault. The world's toxic. And we've been trained to eat in a way that's not in alignment with our species, like quite specifically. What can I be doing with my toddler so I can reintroduce foods back into his diet? Add in meat stock, add in probiotics, remove wheat and sugar. What can I do for my 2-month-old? I've cut out dairy, gluten. He poops every day and reduces his eczema. Great. I'm waiting to see if I also need to cut out eggs. So with a 2-month-old, like it depends on how intense their symptoms are. I would be supporting that baby's skin with some tallow or emu oil. I love both of those for topical skin. I would continue with the probiotic foods. I would add in more healing foods for you. And so it's like really, because it's just a 2-month-old baby, it's really all about your gut right now. And I would avoid sugar if you can, and then use things like meat stock to heal and seal your gut. And you can give your baby a probiotic too. I recommend Smidge probiotic. You want your babies to be able to eat raw milk and eggs. Yes, raw milk is a delicious and healing food. And so I'm with you. But raw milk is actually an advanced food. All of our raw foods are advanced, meaning like the gut has to be healed and digesting these foods. So raw milk is like a GAPS graduated food. And I would recommend going through the dairy introduction protocol, which I teach in my course, starting with ghee, then going to butter, then going to yogurt or whey, then going to kefir. Once all those are tolerated for a long period of time, you're sure the gut's healed and sealed, then you can go for raw milk. My baby loves meat and dairy, loves fruit, but he isn't interested in vegetables. Do I need to offer less fruit and more veg? How can I ensure he's eating a balanced diet? So my question is like, how many servings of fruit per day? And are you noticing any symptoms with a lot of fruit? Are you noticing blood sugar dysregulation? Are you noticing excess wineness? Are you noticing sour smelling poops? Like that might be a sign, but like we never need to do anything just because of doing something. Like if you're noticing a symptom or you're noticing that something you want to change, then yeah, you can make a shift. Fruits are typically a little bit easier to digest for babies because they include those enzymes, but they do feed yeast. So a lot of babies now are born with yeast overgrowth in their microbiome. Like I said, with Augie, we just pretty much don't do fruit. I mean, occasionally he has it. Like he's been eating apples a little bit this week, like just gnawing on an organic apple. And like, he's been more whiny, like it's just like, oh, I just want to give him the apple. So he just like has something that entertains him. Right. But like, in the long run, is that really serving? And yes, eventually my child will eat fruit, it just right now he's not. Okay, we have 3 more questions. I'm on a pro-metabolic healing journey since a year after I lost my child at 8 weeks into the pregnancy. This was November 21. I also have 2 diagnoses, Hashimoto's and endometriosis. Overall, I feel good. I'm incorporating lots of animal protein, bone broth, liver, sausage, chicken, bacon. I eat fermented things daily, like cottage cheese, sauerkraut, kimchi, and yogurt. I don't have access to raw milk, but I get grass-fed organic pastured milk that I add to my cup of coffee. My question is, how can I prepare my body even more for a possible second pregnancy? What would you say is an essential place I can still incorporate? So I would open up your detox pathways and make sure that you're detoxifying properly, because you're going to do that through your healing foods, but I would support your body in releasing more toxins through enemas, through a lower toxic load. You might have already addressed that, but like also detox baths and sunbathing. So I have a full detox module in my course, which breaks down step by step how to do enemas, how to do detox baths, how to use enemas for children when it's necessary, when it's not, how to use detox baths for children. All of that is covered. And I did enemas daily for a long time to prepare for my pregnancy, including coffee enemas. So it depends on how much time you have until you want to get pregnant again, but this can be very beneficial. Curious about the trajectory of introduction of solid foods for Augie, some principles and examples. I think I read on your Instagram, you still haven't introduced fruit. Yeah, so I pretty much covered that. I rely heavily on meat stock. I use fermented brines, and I built up step by step with dairy until he could include all of them. And I'm about to introduce kefir, which, to be honest, I probably could have done around 8 months, but I just didn't get to it. And then now here we are, 13 months going to introduce it. And that should help a lot with the yeast. That's going to add in 60 to 70 beneficial strains of yeast and bacteria to his body. And this is amazing, amazing healing food. Proper way to wash produce. My city water is very dirty and I cannot use tap water to rinse anything. I agree. Tap water is a no-no pretty much everywhere. I don't rinse my farmer's market produce, but I would use a Berkey filter or a charcoal gravity filter for for washing produce. For food introduction, I also use a Berkey for that too. Okay, so this was excellent. Thank you all for being here. I'm so happy that I got to be here with you all. We went over, but we're not over 2 hours, so that's good. I'm going to close with this that I wrote last night. So when Augie was first born, I got this insight from the heavens, and it was trust your magnetism. So it was actually in relationship to like holding my baby and like being like afraid that I'm going to drop my baby, that feeling. But the message was trust the magnetism. So like actually trusting the electromagnetic pull that my baby has. Like he kind of sticks to me, in this like really beautiful way. So this is one of the gems that I've harvested in the underworld journey of motherhood, and I want to share with you. So I wrote this: trust the magnetism. I trust my draw to healing my family with food as medicine. I trust that I know what's best for my baby. I am magnetized to healing foods and ways of living that support life. I run in the direction of health. I trust my body. I know my body can heal. I trust the magnetism to the things that are best for me. I free fall into a healing home and environment. I love my body and my children's bodies back to health. I trust the magnetism to health and healing. So that is for you all. That's our prayer for this workshop. I thank you so much. I hope you join the course. I would love to get to know you further. I would love to talk to you about you and your baby and your children and be on this revolutionary journey together. It's really cool. We can think back to our grandmother experience. A lot of people say from my classes, it connects them to their ancestry. It's truly grassroots movement healing, so powerful. And so I thank you. And I think we have a closing song, right, Alex?
What is it?
Whatever.
I don't know.
Play something. Any requests? We can do Hot Mess. Let's do that. This has been one of my favorite songs. It's by who's it by again? What's her name? Yeah, Dodie. Ready for the dance? You're all very welcome. Can you mute me too?
Now what, my darling? 2 years have passed. Got 27, still crying in cars. Stop planning our lives.
And will you go get
Things
Augie?
that haven't been said. We're not dead. Waiting for the countdown. Happy birthday, dry heave. I am not okay. Brain rot in a pretty dress. I'm a hot mess. Wake up, do the same thing. Break up, then we're dancing. Why am I so right to do it again and again? I can't fight it. You try driving. Exit to the end inside here. Make it ugly, put on a show. Hack it that I hate you so that I can let go. One more reunion and goodbye again. Oh God, I'd be lying if I didn't want 10. Stop drafting replies to things that haven't been said. He's not dead. Still waiting for the countdown. Happy New Year. Don't know, I'm still unclear where to go. Take a fucking guess. I'm a hot mess. Wake up, do the same thing. Break up, then we're dancing. Why am I so right to do it again and again? I can't fight it. You try driving. Exit to the end inside here. Make it ugly, put on a show. How could that I hate you so that I can let go? Let me let go. Try driving, exit to the end inside, dear. Make it ugly, put on a show. Hack it that I hate you so that I can let go. Let me let go.
Thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions. You can send me an email. Super 120.